Looking today at the success of the Corrs, Ireland's biggest music export since U2, it's hard to imagine they could ever have struggled to make it. Their 1995 debut album, Forgiven Not Forgotten, was an immediate international success, but it was the follow-up, Talk on Corners, that really put them on the map. That album, inspired in part by their version of Fleetwood Mac's song Dreams, would spend a year in the UK top 10, reaching #1 an astonishing 4 times. It made the Corrs, and in particular Andrea, some of the most recognisable performers on the planet. They topped that success with In Blue in the year 2000, and their latest album, Borrowed Heaven, looks set to continue the trend. A family band comprising sisters, Andrea on vocals, Sharon on violin, Caroline on drums, and brother Jim on guitar, they started on the road to success in Dundalk, a small town just south of the border with Northern Ireland, in a house filled with a love of music and
We've been playing since we were, I suppose, pretty much toddlers, because there was a piano in one of the bedrooms, and I mean, as soon as we could reach the keys, we were just banging away, and we're constantly listening to what our parents were performing themselves, what they were rehearsing, and what they were just listening to. And so, you know, growing up in that environment, I think, developed for us a love of music from very, very early on.
I think most parents looked at mum and dad and went, what are you doing, encouraging your children in this awful industry, you know? But, I mean, it was sort of a dream unfulfilled for them, totally. I mean, you know, I think they probably felt that they could have gone further themselves. And certainly, they had an incredible love of music, and it was great for them because they had their day jobs, but they had this outlet where I remember them coming home from shows and they'd sit in front of the fire and have a drink, and they just were on a high after a really good show. So they wanted that for us, and I think that they very much trusted John, our manager, so they knew that we weren't going to sort of get into the sort of really sleazy end of the industry.
That manager was former musician John Hughes, who discovered the band while seeking cast members for the film The Commitments, and was immediately impressed by their talent.
Jim, obviously being the oldest, had been around with quite a few bands, and he'd more experience than we had. I mean, myself and Andrew were like, I was 16, Andrew was 15. Sharon, what, 19 or something? Yeah. So we were all quite young and just kind of coming out of school. So we had, you know, we'd obviously had our instruments and we had a musical background, but we had no idea about, you know, working in a band situation, you know. And I think it was when we auditioned for the Commitments film that we'd actually met John. But we only, to audition for that movie, we did 2 covers because we actually hadn't written anything of our own at that stage.
After The Commitments, the band started to rehearse and write, and quite quickly their interest in traditional Irish music and their ear for a good song started to give them the distinctive sound we know today.
I think it was obvious, you know, what we had within us. I mean, I think musically that was quite self-evident, really. I mean, vocally we you know, and from musical influence, we'd always be interested in melody and harmony, and we had those tools within us, you know, and also Sharon playing the violin and everything, and we loved pop music, you know, we loved melodic music, and so that kind of thing just came out naturally when we started to write.
But I think we did do quite a bit of experimentation at that time. We even tried getting close to what was contemporary at the time, with disastrous results, I think. Myself and Sharon had a small group that we went out and played just purely for money, because we'd no income basically, and I'd stop all my session work in Dublin, so I've moved back home. So literally, we'd no money coming in, and so the stuff that we started to do was I had a sampler and I sampled a baron, and from that then we started doing our own interpretation of traditional Irish songs, myself and Sharon, and covering stuff like Mary Black and it was that influence then that we brought into the Corrs in a very short period of time. So by about the 4th number that we'd written, I think then the sound was starting to be defined.
You're forgiven, not forgotten.
You're forgiven, not forgotten. You're forgiven, not forgotten. You're not forgotten.
Basically shop for a record deal and just to go around because we were physically there, and I think when you're physically there, it's much more likely that you'll have a better chance of being signed. So we went around a load of record companies and basically nothing happened. But eventually, John, I think we went into Atlantic Records and we met with a guy called Jason Flom in there. And he said, oh, I'd love you to meet with David Foster, who was their in-house producer at the time. And he couldn't arrange a meeting, but John found out that David was recording Michael Jackson's History album in the Hit Factory in New York. So he said, look, let's just go down, see what happens. So we got all glammed up. I mean, I was in this long black dress. It was sweltering in New York, but it was the only kind of decent clothes we had at the time, so we had to wear it. We arrived down, instruments, and John just said to the big, huge bouncer, he said, we're here to see David Foster. Not like we don't have an appointment and we haven't been invited. No, we're here to see him. So they let us in. And David was very curious and took us upstairs, and I think we played him a demo of Love to Love You, didn't we?
And we did Forgiven Not
Close
Forgotten.
to you, I think, as well.
Closer, yeah. And then Forgiven Not Forgotten, we played around the piano with, you know, the baritone, vocal, violin, piano. And he was just blown over. And the next day we were due to fly home. And John, I remember John rang me the next morning, I was in bed or whatever, and he said, your flight's leaving at blah, 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 so we're leaving the hotel, and by the way, you've got a record deal. And I went, okay, John, and put the phone down, not realising, it was like, you know, it didn't go in, but it was pretty amazing, and it was, you know, I suppose after 5 years of trying and developing our sound and trying with different record companies, it was great for it to finally happen.
The Corrs' debut album was an immediate worldwide success, but what was probably as important as that success was the band's involvement with the album, where they wrote or co-wrote all the tracks.
Well, I suppose that's what happens, you know, when you. It's very, very important to pick the right producer who's going to stick faithfully to the essence of what your sound is, but also develop it and take it up to a higher level. That's very, very important. The record company at certain points might have wanted us to go in certain different directions, and you know, we take on board what they're saying, and maybe at times they might have had a point as regards some issues, and if we'd take that on board if we thought that there was a point to it all. But in essence, you got to be quite firm that, you know, well, this is the sound, this is what we are, and this is what we reckon is going to work, and it's a gamble, and thanks be to God it did work.
Stubbornly resistant to the Corrs, and as they prepared to record the second album, a host of songwriters and producers such as Carol Bayer-Sager, Oliver Lieber and Glenn Ballard were drafted in.
We've done Forgiven Not Forgotten with one producer, and we didn't have one producer for Talking Corrs. And we went out to LA and we decided we'd work with a few people. Whether that was, when I look back, it was a harder process for us. It was a much, much harder way of doing it. We actually got a great record out of it, luckily. But I wouldn't advocate to do that again. I don't think we'd ever want to do that again. It was too difficult. Trying to create a sound on a record that's going to be consistent. It was hard. But then, you see, it was our second record, and we've had the success of Forgiven Not Forgotten. You throw it in, you're going, okay, we gotta do another record. And you sort of just get stuck into it without really looking at it. How are you gonna manage this?
But before that much-deserved success arrived, there was to be one more vital roll of the dice, a chance invitation.
I think this is how it happened.
Tribute album.
They were doing a tribute album to Fleetwood Mac, and there was a load of people on, a load of great people on it, and they asked us to do it. And we managed to get Dreams, which is just like one of the best songs they've ever done, I think, you know. And, you know, we decided to record it, and we recorded it very much like Fleetwood Mac at first, and then we thought, you know, this is wrong, you can't better what Fleetwood Mac have done, and it's too similar in a way, you know what I mean? It wasn't doing anything different to it, it was just a cover of it. And we worked with Oliver Lieber on it, and he took it to this other sort of dance, sort of techno area. And then with the mix of the violin, it was, I think that's where people connected, because it was something very, very unusual to do that with that song. So then I think we sort of, we'd already released, Todd Terry did a remix, yeah, and then we'd already released our album, Only When I Sleep had been like the first single. But then sometime in March after that, this one hit, and it hit. And that was the start of the Talking Corners kind of phenomenon, you know.
Now here I go again. I see the crystal vision, but I keep my visions to myself. Well, it's only me that wants to wrap around your dreams. And have you any dreams you like to sell? Dreams of loneliness, like a heartbeat drives you mad. In the stillness of remembering what you had, yes, what you lost. Thunder only happens when it's raining. And players only love you when they're playing. Yeah, women, they will come and they will go. When the rain washes you clean, you'll know. Yeah, thunder only happens when it's raining. And players only love.
The success of the Corrs' Talk on Corners was the music industry's story of 1998. You wondered how the band would cope at the centre of this whirlwind, as each week it seemed to set new sales records.
There was one point where Talking Corners was #1 and Forgiven Not Forgotten was #2. It was amazing because Forgiven Not Forgotten, although it had worked in the rest of the world, the UK, it had been pretty much very quiet actually. Yeah, so it was amazing that the backlog then came in afterwards.
Instead of, getting swept away with it, you're actually striving for normality. And that's been swept away. Do you know what I mean? So that's actually what your swept away is. Just striving for, back to reality, or coming home, going out meeting friends and just having that normal time, because we were out on the road for like ever. Yeah. When we look back, it was a long time, and you're bound to come off tours being a little bit kind of, okay, I need to go to the spa now and get my bread and my milk. And how do I do that? Oh yes, yeah. You walk. You forget about it because you're on tour and you're in that zone.
The first real studio follow-up to the phenomenon of Talk on Corners was the 2000 album In Blue. In strictly commercial terms, it cemented the Corrs' success, but that success was sadly overshadowed by the death during its recording of the band's mother, Jean.
Our mother died during the making of that album, so that's the kind of overwhelming memory of it, to be honest with you, which is quite vague as well. So, yeah, we were really, really happy to at the same, even in the beginning of the album, and without that having happened yet, we were really happy to get back into it and to, and to write these songs ourselves. And we were very much about, kind of bringing it back a little bit more to the way we had been on Forgiven Not Forgotten. And just trying to express ourselves and write great songs, and we took on an awful lot of work during it, because we co-produced ourselves, and pretty much we were producing ourselves up to a very big degree.
I think, Talking Corners was the phenomenal album, and it was huge, and it was the sort of first really huge success, but they definitely, I think, In Blue just sort of reaffirmed that.
What can I do to make you love me? What can I do to make you care? What can I say to make you feel this? What can I do to get you there? No more waiting, no more aching. Maybe there's nothing more to say. And in a funny way I'll come, because the power is not mine. I'm just gonna let it fly. What can I do to make you love me? To make you love me. What can I do to make you care? To make you care. What can I say to make you feel this? To make you love me. What can I do to get
After In Blue, it would be almost 4 years before the band would release another new studio album, as they took time to come to terms with both their sad loss and the huge changes and pressure now ever present in their lives.
And we never decided, oh God, we're going to take 4 years out, or we're going to spend absolutely ages on this record. You know, we never decided that. It happened, and I think it was good that it happened. I really do. We needed to focus. We needed to just start writing. And we said to ourselves, this record isn't going anywhere until we are completely happy with it. And we've written as much as we can in the studio, and we've gotten the songs to the level we want, and we've got the producer that we want. And that took time. It took a lot of time. And, you know, we did a lot of personal stuff as well, which was great.
I think we wrote on inspiration, so that was quite there was big gaps in between that. You know, if you wrote a song, you ring everybody up and go into the studio and record it, and then we'd be free again till somebody got inspired again. And so that went on for quite a while. I think when we felt we'd got, like, some more songs came after this, but when we got to a point when we felt we've really got great songs here, and I think that's when it started to move more, and when we went in search of this producer, and we were recommended Ola Romo by Mutt Lang, and he had worked with Mutt Lang, so we pretty much knew, right, this guy's going to be a serious worker. That's one thing. We sent 3 of our songs and demos that we'd produced up to a certain level ourselves. We sent them out to him in LA, and he worked on them, gave him a few weeks, and he flew over with them, and we were really thrilled with the outcome. We kind of were, oh my God, it's got the dynamics, it's exploding at times, you want it to, and you know, all those things that are so important in a producer. So he was sold pretty much on us.
The new album, Borrowed Heaven, is without doubt the band's most personal to date. The loss of their mother Jean is felt throughout the tracks, particularly on the poignant new single, Angel.
It's quite funny because you don't set out to write a song particularly about something like that, but what you can't help but do when music is inspiring you in a certain way is write about something that is very deep and obviously you care very deeply about. I find it really great and kind of cathartic to get it out, even though you're not viewing it as therapy, but in a way there's something that is cathartic about it. And also, you know, when we're even performing last night, and I do pretty much feel it every night in singing that song and Goodbye, it's almost I mean, she's immortal then. You know, that's the whole crowd that even if they haven't heard that it's about her, they're singing Angel, or they're, you know, or even they can relate it to their own lives. But in a certain way, it's like you're not gone, really, you know, in a way. So it doesn't end up being harder. It ends up, to me, when it comes in the set, I enjoy it because it brings me into a reality of it, and I stop thinking about the silly things very much when Angel comes along, because it's just too important, you know, and it's just too raw in order to kind of get silly.
Well, we love what we're doing, and we'll go on for as long as we possibly can. Obviously, the situation will change from time to time, as it has now for Caroline. Caroline's got a wee baby, Jake, and another one on the way. So we'll just make the necessary adjustments, I think, until we decide to call it a day. But that's not for a long way off, I don't think.
You know, when you've been doing this for as long as we have, it's very hard to go, okay, I don't want to do that anymore. You know, I mean, it's great. I mean, you know, and you know, you don't want to throw away the success that you've built up over the years and that. So you try and work around it. But your life does get more complicated, obviously, when you get a bit older and you've got kids and husbands and Wives, maybe wives, some stage.
Just around the corner.
Yeah, so we'll see.
She lived like she knew nothing less. Didn't care to look like anyone else. And she was beautiful, so angel, I hope they love you like we do forever. Angel, I'll be proud to be like you, be like you. Just like you. And when I go to sleep at night, I'll thank you for each blessed things around me. For every fall I'll ever break, each moment's breath I wanna taste